Good evening, yeah, in Ghana, and I think that's good afternoon in Chicago or early evening in Chicago. So I'm Va-Bene Elikem Fiatsi, also known as a crazinisT artist, the director of Purple Craze International Artist Residency, and also a multidisciplinary performance artist. Most of my works have to deal with gender violence, anti-blackness, racism, and Christian extremism that have been the legacy of most colonial states or countries. Um, so since 2012, I have been actively engaged in a lot of activisms, creating performances, which was a new call for me after renouncing Christianity and after rejecting the church, because I was also a priest and I was also a preacher and I was teaching the gospel. So you will see a lot of these symbolisms also appearing in most of my performances and most of my installations. This particular performance has been inspired by my earlier work called Rituals of Becoming. And the idea of Rituals of Becoming is creating the new self and also initiating yourself into a new being, which was borrowed also from Christian baptismal concept, where you are conceptually transformed and spiritually ordained as a new being. And in tradition, we have this outdooring, and that is naming ceremony of a child, which is another transition. And then we have a puberty rite, which is another transition. For me, when I look at gender performativity or gender identity, I understand also that we cannot talk about gender without talking about the collaboration between an individual and the public, because one's gender does not live in isolation. Whether queer gender, whether straight, whether bi, whether multiple genders, or whatever gender we embody, is actually a result of a certain form of collaboration between the community in which you find yourself, or the communities that you are navigating. So for me, I have several identity renamings. Sometimes I refer to myself as a transverter, which also intend not to conform to queer normativities. So it's a way of actually escaping all kind of boxes, all kind of frames, creating new spectrums and larger spectrums for me to be able to identify myself as large as I want. So I also say I am that I am. So of course we would say I am that I am is also reference from the Bible. So for me, this particular work, being influenced by these rituals of becoming and puberty, right, is creating a space where we borrow again our daily existence and struggles to remain who we are or to maintain a certain form of identity. And the hair is one of the most important things that comes into many rituals. Either the hair is being cut off, or either the hair is being transformed into a new being. So when we talk about puberty, they are shaving either the girls or the boys, and then initiating a girl into a womanhood, initiating a boy into a manhood. But I'm looking at an initiation or a puberty where you initiate one gender into another gender. So you are not following this, how will I call it? You are not following this kind of systemic masculine or patriarchal normativities. So you create a puberty where you can initiate a girl into a manhood, or initiate a boy into a womanhood, or initiate girl boy into a queerhood. So this is, I would say, this is also very interesting that I'm performing with someone who identify as cis at the same time queer, because we can also talk about queerness in terms of relationship. And this person is stripping off these hairs that I put on, and trying to create a new being, which is like a liminal. I don't know where we belong, or we don't know where we even belong. So this kind of performances, I have been working on several of them. One which was also ritual realities. And so the ritual reality, so these are all they are like parallel performances. The ritual realities were performances that I did with video recordings from border struggle, where I was stripped in some borders, or I was mistreated and detained in some of the international borders. And also, of course, in the so-called open societies, like in New York, in Switzerland, and also in Germany. You could imagine the trans body navigating these spaces, and not just being trans, but also being a black person. So when I think about most of my performances, I think in all these thematic constructions, looking at anti-blackness and looking at blackness and looking at trans, the layers that even make it more complex for us to actually claim a certain form of freedom, because the more we fight for freedom, the more the layers begin to reveal themselves, or there are many layers revealing and unfolding that reveals our vulnerabilities in many ways. So so I would say it's been very interesting for this project, which is also out of sight. I am very grateful, of course, doing this project. For me, I took it like a residency, actually, because since the time I got my invitation, I've been working and creating spaces and experimenting new lights, new sounds, and everything until today. So for me, out of sight also has given me that room to. I've eaten a lot of clay, so have given me that room to think again about the body out of space. Even though now in our confinement, we are still living, we are living in our own spaces, we are living in our own homes, but that does not actually change the narratives that comes, or that envelope queerness or blackness or transness, or colonial, our colonial past, because the experiences are reproducing itself in many ways. So I would say for me, when I started looking at that, the idea of performing in this space called out of sight, I was not necessarily looking at the physical space, but I was looking at the body of as a site-specific element, and looking at also spirituality as another form of being, and then looking at our colonial representation. So trying to create new site within all these spaces led me into creating a new room altogether for the performance, creating new lights, looking at the idea of the halo of the person who is actually taking. So it's like there is this holy body that is placed in space, and trying to renew your soul or revive you. So for me, all these things made me think about a lot of things. So I try to combine technology, combine science, fictions, and surrealisms, again with traditional rituals. So because this is the reality in which we exist, that we cannot pretend that these things are not part of the way we are actually living our lives. So if there is any question on Twitch, someone can read it to me, and then I can respond, because I'm looking at the back of the camera.
No.
Yeah.
Just compliments.
Yeah. So
So
if you have any question, you can just let me know. Yeah. Sometimes it's also very complex to finish performance and talk about performance, because you are just, it's like a kind of switch from a spiritual being, because performance, for me, performance is not just a representation, it's not an expression, it is a life. So when I perform, I am aware of not being in the spaces in which my audience are living in. So I don't know how to put it. So sometimes there is going high and then you have to come down, and there's these fluctuations. So after performance, it's also very it's interesting, but at the same time it's somehow it comes with some mixed feelings when you finish performance and you talk about the performance. But one thing I didn't mention is that also for me, I'm interested in process.
A question.
Okay.
Can you tell us any story about what happened to you during the performance?
Well, yes. So, okay, I don't know how to put. Okay, so if you say story, yeah. During this particular performance, right? So during this particular performance, there was this, like I mentioned also about liminal spaces and also liminal bodies, which I think I am, because I do not actually.
Processes.
I do not. You said?
I said we are talking about that now. So the processes, yeah. So you can continue.
Okay, so yeah, so for me, when during this particular performance, I was again understanding that, look, performance cannot be a representation, or performance cannot be an expression. It is live. It is live in the sense that these things that were presented in this performance are not are not imported. This is our life. This is what we live in. So in a way, presenting processes, because this I would definitely do this in another day, taking my hair and braiding my hair and doing those things. But then bringing the processes into performance, or bringing the processes into art to audience, it's a question also to audience in performance art. How do audience actually miss in performance? Because right now, as I speak, after here, the performance continues. I'm going to wash down myself. I'm going to take off the clay. So the performance continues, but the audience do not have the chance to see the extension of the performance. So the question again is, how do audience miss in performance? How do audience experience in performance? When does performance start and when does it end? Nobody saw me when I was putting down the clay, eating the clay before coming into the virtual space. So all these things audience do not even experience it. So for me, when I perform, I'm aware of stretching these boundaries where audience can even, so I don't have an end for performance. So you will see the camera just ended, but there was nothing that showed that the performance was ended. So you could also be imagining the performance continued if the camera goes off. And if to talk about what I experienced here is going back in the past, whilst the hair was being cut, because cutting my hair on this is like butchering. So it brings back a lot of memories of also the idea of suffering certain kind of violences, because here is just my hair, but the hair also represents our being. So cutting this hair at this moment, even though for me it's a transitional ritual, it's a gain of killing one body to gain a new body. Because in every transitional ritual, you die to live. So you die as a child to become a girl, you die as a girl to become a woman, when we are talking about outdooring and we are talking about puberty in the heteronormative structures. And when we are talking about this trans identity, moving from male to female, female to male, you die again. So I remember somebody told me that, my auntie told me that I do not want you because you murdered my son. And that was like, it's crazy, because she think that I have become something that killed the child that she knew. Because I agree with her, and so this is the death we talk about all the time. So even butchering my hair on this keep reflecting. I keep reflecting on some of the words and the statement that were coming from my family when I began my transitions.
Another question: Can you tell us any story? Sorry, Can you talk about the sense of duplicity in the reflection and actuality?
Again?
Can you talk about the sense of duplicity in the reflection and actuality?
Yes, yeah, I exist in, sometimes I say I don't even exist in dualities, I exist in multiplicities. I don't even know whether that's the best term I should even identify. But I like to use the word I am that I am. So when it comes to this sense of actuality or reality and or a mirage, I always again refer to the metrics where we do not know whether when we dream it is when we are alive or when we are alive is when we dream. So because we don't know as we speak now whether we are dead beings, we are not aware. Whether if we die and go to the next world, that is when we are living, we don't know. So for me, when I'm also thinking about reflection and realities, I look at it in these senses. However, I can also remember very well that one of the things that triggered my calling, because I say to become an artist was a calling for me. So everything I do for me is an agency. So I want to die with that agency. And I know I'll die in my performance one day. But one of the things that triggered me was around 2013 and 12 when I was in a philosophy class and they were teaching about Plato's Allegory of the Cave. So this sense of reality and the shadow, or the sense of reflection or refraction in our being is still something that we can never stop questioning. Yeah, so right now we are talking about Corona. We are in confinement. We only listen to the radio and watch the televisions and read the news. But the actual situation, the reality, again, when we come to that reality, I don't know how many of us can really assess and evaluate that reality. So that is not so different from our being as either black or white, green, blue, or trans, queer, straight, whatever. So when I look at refraction, reality, and mirroring, it's still important for me to know that there is some kind of spaces that overlap.
Another one. I noticed that clay is a retained material in your performance. Can you say something about that? And what will you do with your hair laying on the floor?
Oh, the hairs that are on the floor, good. Anytime I cut my hair in my performances, I store them. So I have a lot of hairs stored in my studio. Even my mustache, my pubic hairs, they are installed. So I keep my hairs. I started keeping my hair after learning about how, especially after I was totally rejected by my family. There is this ritual that if you die out of your country or somewhere that they cannot bring your body, they bring your nails and they bring your hair to the family. That is the way they can bury you or mourn you or perform the funeral. And I don't know whether my family will accept my body if I am one day dead, because I don't know if they are going to accept a dead trans body or dead transvata body. So for me, I keep my hairs. If my body is not accepted, one day somebody can transfer my hair to my family. Maybe they will accept that. So I keep a lot of my hairs and I begin to keep a lot of my body element. If I could even keep my fluid, I think I'll start keeping my body fluid. But then for me, when I started performing in 2013 with clay, the first thing that came into mind is to already accept myself as a dead being. And that also is coming from both Christian and traditional knowledge about clay, where in burial ceremonies you are told that clay you are and clay you won't go into again, or clay you won't become. So those things ring bell, telling me that the earth is my home. I came from the earth and I go back into the earth. So when I perform and put clay on my body, it is a way to say I am ready to go. It is a way to say I have no regret if I am dead today. It's a way to say I am connected to the earth. And it's a way to say I'm connected to the ancestors. So for me, it's an alternative language to perform in between life and death. So that is it. So I like to use a clay a lot in my performance. Aside clay, I use oils in my performances.
Jay, the one, someone said strong words put the entire performance in a true, heartfelt perspective. It's a compliment.
Oh, thank you.
I think,
Yeah. If my time is up, they can just type there. I don't want to take too much time. So if Karen is on Twitch, Karen, I'm not reading that from line, so you can just write there how many minutes more I have to talk, so I can answer questions within that.
You're saying thank you.
Yeah. So so I want to thank Karen and all my colleagues, Maz, Vanessa, Sarah, Jeremy, and all those who are performing after me today. I want to say I'm sending you love, strength, and energy to do this amazing work. And Karen, I am so honored working with you. It's been an amazing journey. Like I said, it was a residency for me. It was not an invitation to perform. It was a residency to produce and think about performance in new dimensions. And I also want to say I have amazing teams that work with me. So I want to use this opportunity to thank them. Edward Ansor, Martin Toloku, who will be celebrating his birthday tomorrow, Adamu, Nanoeki, who was my main collaborator today in the performance, Amujima Wena, Ibukun Sunday from Nigeria. Anyone I miss? Okay, so the entire team, I say I'm very grateful. I'm so happy for your maximum support. And to Experimental Sound Studio, we are very grateful to have this opportunity to share our experiences via virtual spaces. Thank you all, and I'm looking forward to see the rest of the performances and also be in touch with all of you.
They also say thank you and strength and courage.
Sending love, strength, and courage. Yeah.
Okay, so if there's no question.
And then Experimental Sound is saying, may we work together again someday?
Sure, I'm always available for collaborations.
Yeah, love. Yeah, sending you love.
Okay, kisses to all of you. Now I continue the performance by washing myself, and I'll join you later. Bye.